everyone. This is Monica Brinkman. Welcome to Let's Talk It Over. And with me today, of course, is my wonderful co-host, Dr. Kenneth Weene. And Debbie is back with us today. Hi, Debbie. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you.
Now, if you haven't seen any of the previous broadcasts, please do so, because this is a topic that needs to be discussed. And Ken has been just wonderful in talking about this because he is a doctor and has worked with patients before. And I've been just fascinated that the two of you communicate so well.
Okay, well, thank you.
mean, it's
But I
he
have to
seems
correct you about
hit right on.
I have to correct you about something. I have never had a patient in my life. I have had clients.
Ah, Debbie, also wording means a lot and you don't think about it.
No.
But he's right. A client is different than a patient.
Yeah.
Client
Because patient right away puts like you're ill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. So
Thank you,
anyway, yeah,
Dr. Pam and I, we have a working relationship, which I love that.
yeah.
I like that way too.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
I have to admit that when I was practicing as a shrink, I always saw it. I saw working, but I also saw it as a playing relationship.
Mm.
Part of my basic faith about therapy, okay, even after my years of lying on a couch and doing dreams and psychoanalytic, my greatest thing is that I think that the thing that is most curative is the celebration of self that can go on in between a client and therapist, where the client can affirm their right to own their life, to control their life, to celebrate their life, to enjoy their life, and to make their life. And I always saw my role was helping people to be able to take that kind of ownership and control. And I think that was kind of just to give you a segue in, because I know what you want to talk about today.
Well, that's something that even today, and Dr. Payman has for 7 years worked intensely with me, many hours a week. But it's just with D.I.D. and complex trauma, it's definitely a journey to get to that point. And I started out trying to heal myself or work with myself in 1983-ish, 84-ish. And then here it is. I don't even know the year right now. Sorry.
It's 2023. So
Thank you, Monica.
And we're just at the stages of being able to give our child selves compassion. But first we had to learn to give the alters compassion, and then open the door to give myself the compassion at that age. And it's just so here it is, 2023 now, and it started in 1980s. And it's just not a linear thing. It's a great goal. And as soon as Ken was saying that clearly in alter, Debbie was like, please, how? But there's no other how than how we've been doing it. And we've been very fortunate in the last 7 years to be with Dr. Payman. And now we have another therapist who's also very good with us. So anyway, the heart definitely would love that. But to get to that part of the journey it doesn't seem possible, but it is. It just.
you're going to do it. Yeah.
We're very careful. We're very careful. Like anytime, like I have, thankfully, and for being multiple and with complex trauma, developing friendships, and plus what happened back in 1990s with Renegade and Jane, definitely put me in a cave for many, many, many years. But as today, I really have probably 3 to 4 really good 3 friends that I can really count on.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It's a miracle, right? I mean, that is just,
Yes.
to me, I feel like I won the lottery, you know, and then I have a 4th friend that I can just have a good time with, you know,
Yeah.
but 3 friends I can rely on. They know the condition, they know the effects of it, they know the trauma stuff. So if I'm having a hard time out and I need to call Tara, I don't have to tell her all the stuff. I just use certain words. She goes, you're in the outhouse.
And they realize.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then she knows. And so we can just help me get redirected or grounded. And so that's such a gift, more than I can ever begin to say. And,
I bet. Yeah.
So, but to get to that point, definitely took a lot of turmoil and agony.
What happened with,
You know, I want to, you've mentioned Tara before, and of course, what people don't know is that she is in the room with you. And we haven't talked about that, and very supportive lady. And she is a naturopath, I believe.
She is, yes.
I know, good
doctor. Yeah.
Actually, we've even chatted a little bit, and you know, she had some of our love for that approach to to health. But she's something else, and I'm going to use another one of those words that make my life meaningful, if you will.
Yes, we all get educated again.
There is a word, authentic.
Oh, yeah.
It is defined, it was really introduced in therapy by an existentialist named Bugenthal. And it really is synonymous with something that the French existential playwright Jean-Paul Sartre also talked about, which is living in good faith. And the thing that came across to me about Tara when I got to talk with her is that she's authentic.
Yes.
She lives in good faith.
Yes.
What you see is not phony.
Correct.
And that, to me, is really very important if you're going to help people to learn how to celebrate themselves and feel good about themselves and feel integrated, is that you, as a therapist, have to try and be as honest and authentic and in good faith as you can.
Absolutely can. And that's what you just said is the reason we were able to stay with Dr. Payman, for as long as we have, because she will tell you the work was grueling. And there were times I did not want to come in. It was hard. And there were times I was projecting all over her, which made her job very hard. But in the very beginning, there was, so I don't want to say they're mistakes because they're lessons. The reason they're not mistakes because we both learned from them. And so it caused her to go deeper and evaluating herself, and it caused me to go deeper and evaluating myself. But the reason that we kept showing up with her is because she's able to look me in the eyes and say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Mm-hmm. And then she went and corrected those mistakes and didn't make those same mistakes again and again and again and again. And so it caused her to take a real good look at herself. It caused her to even maybe change some of the things that she was doing in her practice. It also caused me to go that level of trust again when I was not trusting. But that's the reason I could stay in. That's the reason I was able to benefit and do the work with her and keep showing up, is because she was able to take ownership when she, when she could have done better or needed to do better. She was able to take ownership and make corrections. I don't like the way I just said all that.
Okay.
I think you talk each other.
It's to think about how you might want to say it differently, but it made perfectly good sense to me. Okay. I think that word ownership is one that, like I use some
right.
It's very central to me. That's one that's very central to you, I've noticed.
But just there's every doctor, it's a practice, right? And every doctor, every therapist, we're all humans, and we're gonna make mistakes sometimes. The practice and everyone, even experts who know D.I.D, they're gonna make mistakes, right. or who supposedly know D.I.D, who are the expert in it, they're gonna make mistakes.
Right.
I had a therapist before Dr. Payman, as we were trying to find other therapists for D.I.D, who was making mistakes right in front of me and couldn't own up to her mistakes. I'm like, oh, I'm done here. So that's why I kept coming in to Dr. Payman's office, because in the beginning she felt this was out of her scope of practice, and as far as doing D.I.D work. And so, and I was torn to other therapists, but you have to, with me, I think it's best for everyone, but especially with me, because of what I've been through, you have to own up to what you're doing wrong, even if it's stupid stuff. You got to own up to it.
Absolutely.
Stuff, then how can you own up to the more severe stuff or serious stuff? And I'm watching it all. And so she, and so Dr. Payman was able to do that. Not only she looked into our eyes and say, I am sorry. Whenever she needed to be, I'm sorry. And that didn't happen often. It didn't happen. It was, but it was needed. And that's what caught Deb's attention, because Deb was the protector of everyone. Deb was searching her out and kind of watching her. Don't fuck us up. Don't fuck with us. That kind of attitude. Sorry about my language.
It's okay.
It's Deb, right? I mean.
So, but the first time Tara gave an apology, we're like, huh? I mean, it didn't compute, but yet it's what we absolutely needed. And
real shock. I mean, were you surprised?
And I will tell you the honest truth, through all my system, no one's ever given us a genuine, sincere apology for anything, ever. Wow. Until I'm in my 50s, I'm in 60s now, but when I met Dr. Payman, the first person who ever gave a genuine apology. Yeah, there's people go, I'm sorry. What's that? Like, they're frustrated and they're sorry. Like, they're just fed up with me or tired or annoyed. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not a genuine apology.
Well, I think that's probably one of the most honest things somebody could say about people in general, is that we have to own our mistakes, and we seldom do. But you said something a little earlier that I wanted to kind of flat back on. I had pointed out to Monica that I saw clients, not patients. And then you were talking about people who are experts on D.I.D, which, by the way, folks, if you haven't listened, is dissociative identity disorder. The thing is, you see, if you have clients, you can apologize. If you have patients, you have to play God. And, when I'm going to a proctologist and he's going to stick something up my ass, I want him to know, I want him to be an expert. But when I'm talking about my soul, when I'm talking about my feelings, about who and what are meaningful in my life, I don't want to be with somebody who's playing God. I don't want to be with an expert. I want to be with somebody who's a human.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you said. When you talk about ownership and saying you're sorry and meaning it, that's being human.
Absolutely. And to me, that's also a real definition of authenticity.
Yeah, absolutely. And good faith.
Authenticity, Ken?
And having integrity. It was Dr. Payman's modeling for me that helped me model for alters, which gave alters safety and security to trust her. And that's where the work really got to begin. That's where we were able to do some serious work. Now, it all came flooded up all in her office, a lot of stuff, and it was extremely painful and hard, but it was possible because of authenticity and integrity. And to this day, we still have someone in our life that is still showing us integrity and authenticity. And
it's consistent.
Very.
Which is wonderful. Yeah, you've probably yearned for that for decades.
Yep. And unfortunately, because of the experience with Renegade and Jane, I went into unfortunately, because when that all happened, as soon as I saw that this relationship between Jane and Deb definitely was what I was suspecting, or having that annoyance in my system, thinking something's not right, I right away went to Carl and told him, oh my gosh, you know, and I went right away to Renee and told her, oh my God. Renee did not once apologize because I kept telling her something's not right, something's not right.
Yeah.
Something doesn't feel right, you know. Now, of course, at that, just to be fair, at that time, she's also working on other altars. And, you know, appointments are hour and a half a week, sometimes twice a week, plus group therapies. And so very busy in the world of D.I.D. And I was raising 3 kids. And so there was a lot to go over. That's why therapists want helpers to help them in between appointments. So
Sure.
I don't want to excuse her, but there are reasons sometimes that sometimes therapists are overloaded, or they're just so focused on what they know. She wasn't really listening to what I was trying to say. And she kept saying that it was the trauma talking. And it's not always the trauma. It's not always the trauma. And that's hard. That's why I've learned I don't want to tell people that I have this condition or I have trauma in my life, because then it always looks like if I'm having a problem, it's trauma. Oh, it's her trauma. It's her trauma. And I get
Well, that's an easy out for them.
Oh, you
To
know,
say that.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, and
No.
besides which, you know, as they say, like even paranoids have enemies.
yeah.
You know, even if it is from the trauma, the fact that traumatic people can be re-traumatized is also reality, you know.
Exactly what happened, you know, because Renegade was just, she was just, I think she was shocked, but she never once said, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening to your gut. Because at that time, she knew I had a hard time listening to my gut. You know, it's always been a problem. My mind and gut is just like the worst enemies. And even to this day, I have a hard time with that. And I'm very intuitive and have a very high sensitive level to things. And I can see things and feel things before the other person can even see and feel them. And so it's a gift for me, but it's been squandered or squashed so much from early childhood all the way through growing up that too many people were able to convince me I wasn't feeling, I wasn't seeing, I wasn't experiencing what I was experiencing.
Yeah.
That's out there. So it wasn't me out to have an affair. It wasn't me out to do anything, but really the right thing. But it was, I went to her because I went to Carl and her right away, like immediately, and told them what had happened.
Yeah.
And Renegade's option was, you have to get out of this relationship or I cannot work with you any longer as a client.
Oh my word.
And that floored Deb, because Deb is now thinking that she might be the host. Because remember, we had that whole issue with who's the host.
Yeah.
And then Debbie was having horrible depression, thinking that she needed to die to be in her dreams of being a mother and a wife. She didn't really want to be a wife as much as a mother, but she was married, so she was getting her best. And so she was kind of dying to her dreams and thinking that Deb was going to, you know, take over and be the host. And so now, but Deb's not aware of her issues until later on, didn't realize that she had trauma too. And so, but during that time, Renee said, you have to stop seeing her. You cannot be my client any longer.
And not taking any of the ownership that she had pushing you into it.
And never apologized for not listening to me. That would have been great opportunity. Your gut does tell you, you do have good intuition. You can trust your gut. I am so sorry I wasn't listening.
Can you talk a little bit about your anger at Renegade?
Say that again.
Can you talk a little bit about your anger at Renegade?
You can hear it, huh?
Yeah.
And I would be angry too.
I think it's important to own it. I'd be furious.
Yeah, you have every right.
Furious for you.
You know what's really interesting is none of this came out as, it was always my guilt, my shame, my problem, my fault, until I met Dr. Payman.
And now you're going to let yourself be angry too? Or is that still hard for you?
I have to learn how I can be angry with it. And as I don't, as long as I'm angry, I don't know. I'm kind of dissociating here a little bit. Sorry.
I'm going to do something that I almost never have done. I just have to find it. Yeah, there it is. Okay, you know, we sell books, Monica and I, mostly our own, but there is one book that I am going to recommend to you and to Tara and to everybody who's listening. I have, you know, it's funny, there are certain things in my professional career I've sold a lot of. You know, like I've sold a lot of rosaries, believe it or not. I always used to joke I've sold more rosaries than any Jew since Jesus, because I consider the rosary such a wonderful meditation tool that anybody of Orthodox faith or Catholic faith, I say, you know, get yourself a rosary, say your rosary, because it is very good meditation. Well, this is a book. This is now like its fifth or sixth incarnation, but it's one that I have used over the years. Hold it up here, and then I'm going to take it back. It's called Your Perfect Right. And this is the 10th edition. I don't know if there's an 11th out. I got this one a couple of years ago. And it's by two guys named Alberti and Emmons. And Monica, I'd like to put the link up for this in the show description. And I'd like to recommend it as a way to talk about how to use being assertive rather than getting so angry that it overwhelms us, but also rather than being passive. Because one of the things that I know is very difficult for all of us, especially women, especially women who are like in their 50s, 60s now, you know, as opposed to the younger women. I mean, I don't think my granddaughter, who's in her 20s, has any trouble being assertive. But, you know, my wife certainly does. And, you know, Lord knows.
I can definitely be assertive. I think I still hold myself responsible. I should have known better and should have believed my gut.
So I'd like to suggest that you get yourself a copy of this book. It has exercises and things that might help you. And, you know, feel free to recommend it, folks. And yes, I think that is the problem. And I think that only when we can see that as part of ourselves, that our anger is a healthy part of ourselves, and our helplessness is a healthy part of ourselves, and our fear is and we can integrate it all, that we are really comfortable. And so, I mean, I'm setting this task for you. Sorry. But it is a task you might want to take on board.
That sounds good.
So we're about out of time, and we have done now 3 sessions of 3 shows. We've talked about having dissociative disorder. We've talked about therapy, iatrogenic problems, things like that. And, you know, and so I'm going to tell you folks, we've been doing this all in one thing. All 3 of these have now been one continue. I'm exhausted. I don't know about you guys, but I'm exhausted. But what I'd like at this point, if it's okay with you, Debbie, is to suggest that you think about whether you'd like to come back on another day, maybe do another 2, 3, I don't care, 1, 2, 3, whatever, podcasts, and pursue some of the other things, because we really haven't even gotten to know your altars.
Yeah.
And I know
I've had a lot of immigration. There's not that many left.
Yeah.
I think.
Good for you, though.
Yeah.
You've been really working. That's great.
I've
Congratulations.
probably done more work, and I'd love to introduce Dr. Payman if we can real quick. I've done more work as far as real work with altars with Dr. Payman in 6 years than I did the previous 15 years with 2 different specialists in D.I.D.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Tara,
Yeah.
thank you. More like you. Ah, there she is. Yay.
Wait,
Yeah.
I mentioned other times that you're a naturopath, and do you have a website, Tara?
She's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a website.
Would you email it to us? And Monica's going to put it under the show description. And folks, if you're looking for somebody who can advise you about naturopathy, and especially if you're in the Phoenix area, because that's where Tara practices, I will tell you from what I've seen of her, she's pretty darn good. Very quickly, would you like to explain? Because I bet, I know what a naturopath is. I'm guessing Monica does. Obviously, you do, but I don't know that all our audience does. So you want to explain?
We need more of you.
Yeah, I agree. But would you like to explain what a naturopath is?
So a naturopathic doctor is trained as a primary care doctor first. So we're trained to understand anatomy, physiology, biology, all of the basic sciences, and pharmacology as well. We learn even minor surgery, like all of the basic sort of medical things. But then instead of just learning all drugs and surgery and going into a specialty, like a conventional doctor would, we learn holistic options. So we learn herbal medicine, we learn homeopathic medicine, we learn nutrition in depth, diet, lifestyle changes. In Arizona, we're also licensed to do acupuncture. So we learn that, traditional Chinese medicine. We learn how to do IV therapy, a whole host of things. And the idea is that with naturopathic medicine, we want to really get to not just the cause. If you have a bacterial infection, you take an antibiotic, and that's, supposedly the cause. In which, in some cases, it really is the cause. But then why did you get that bacterial infection in the first place? Was there an immune dysfunction? So we look underneath what most conventional doctors look at as the typical sort of superficial causes of illness. We look even deeper than that into the root causes of illness and try to undo those root causes using holistic therapies.
And one more thing I want to say about naturopaths, that from my personal experience, is when you go online and when you're watching television, they have the ad for that medication, and then at the bottom it says, and this may be blah, 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 and they give you this list of side effects like yay long. And you go to your MD, or even although I use an osteopath, I think is a little better trained, but when you go to them and they poo-poo all of that, then you go to your naturopath and they say, well, this is why that happened to you taking that medicine a lot of the time. So when I was very young, I realized, gee, if I took antibiotics, I had problems with my colon, with shitting. And why is that? And, nobody ever explained it, or nobody. Now we know if you're taking antibiotics, you should be taking a probiotic with it, and or eating Greek yogurt, which is a great way to help your immune system, and all these kind of things. And wow, this is becoming cutting edge. So I think one of the things that fascinates me is that naturopathy is now the cutting edge of medicine.
It always should have been, as far as I'm concerned. I always got angry that we really didn't have the choice when it came to insurance and such.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a choice to go to a naturopath, but who could afford it? Things are changing now.
Yep. And
the more doctors like this, the better it's going to be. So thank you so much.
Fortunately, our guest and her doctor, the computer has frozen. So
that must be the end of the show then. I hope they'll come back and chat with us again soon also.
So, okay. Monica, thank you so much for doing the show with me. And Debbie and Tara, if you can hear me, thank you so much for being on with.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Take care, guys. And we're going to have a little something for you right now, as we always do. So enjoy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ephraim, my neighbor, wasn't much of a musician, but he could pick at a guitar and his voice didn't stray too far off track. That made him good enough for a part-time gig at the Dewdrop Inn. That's where he and I hung out. There must be one of those pun name bars in every town. Some have the extra E to make them sound classy, and some don't. Other than that, they're all pretty much the same. Dumps. This one, it belonged to Sal Marjoni. Had an Irish theme courtesy of some 4-leaf clover decals and a sign for Killian's Red, which Sal didn't actually serve. He did make a bad Irish coffee using a tar-like liquid from a seldom cleaned and long overboiled pot topped with Ready Whip. Order a copy of Tales from the Dewdrop Inn, and as Sal would say, enjoy yourself.